Good morning, everyone. Welcome in. Just going to let everyone filter in for a few minutes. So feel free to have a go in the putting a message in the chat, even if it's just a hello or where you're joining in from this morning. That would be really amazing. Or feel free to come off mute and just say hello whilst we're waiting for everyone to come in. We'll get started probably about 3 minutes past, I think. Sophie. Sophie, is that a hand up? Or is that a wave?
Apologies, that was an error. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Just checking you were all right. Brilliant. Martin, we've already got representation from Scotland first in the chat. Morning, Graham. Bradford. Hi,
Yeah, we know each
Felicity.
other.
Brilliant. Morning, Esther. Kiana. Oh, another Martin. Morning. Amazing. Morning, Molly from Hull. Brilliant. Lovely to see you all. Morning, Federica. Morning, Priya from Cardiff. Morning, Nicola. Brilliant. We've got about 37 people in now, Rachel and Ellie. So, oh, Cornwall. Brilliant. Welcome, Katie.
Do you think we should kick off?
Yeah, it's about 3 minutes past. I think we can kick off.
Perfect.
Brilliant.
Ellie, can you share the slides?
Yeah, cool.
So welcome everybody. It's great to have so many of you here today with us. I think it just shows how important this session is going to be and how valuable, hopefully, that you'll find it. You'll meet a range of people across the next hour and a half, and you're going to hear loads of experience about co-production from different perspectives, from the perspective of people who are living with dementia or caring for people with dementia, perspectives from community partners who are working with people in services and grassroots community organisations, and perspectives on co-production from researchers. And we may think similarly and we may all think differently, but hopefully you're just going to walk away today with lots of ideas and knowledge that you can feed into your application process. Are you okay to go to the next slide, Ellie? I'll just set out what we're going to do, and then the presenter team are just going to do a quick round of introductions, just so you know who we are, and you can maybe spot us on the screen, because there's quite a lot of us now on the screen. So for about 20 minutes or so, we're going to talk through some of the empower approaches to co-production, some principles of co-production from learning and practice and research, stages of co-production, and some of our top tips, just to kind of set the scene for you as we go into the next most important bit, I think, of the session, which will be for about 45 minutes. We're going to you're going to hear from people, lived experts, community partners and researchers, sharing their top tips, their nuggets, their wisdom, their ideas about how you and others can make co-production the best it can be, particularly in terms of your application to the Empower Network. We're recording this, so if you want to watch it all again, you can. So just before we kick off, I'm going to do my best to go around this now quite big screen. Oh, there we go. You're all here. Thank you. Just to ask for a very quick introduction from each of you. So this is for people on the panel and people who are presenting. So can I ask Ellie? Ellie, do you want to go first?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. My name's Ellie Robinson Carter, and so I'm the founding artistic director of the Photobook Project, which is a small CIC based in Plymouth, down in Devon. And I'm also the program director for the MSc Dementia at Hull University. And I've had the privilege of designing this training with the group. So yeah, thank you so much for coming, and I'll pass back to Rachel.
Thank you, Ellie. Martin?
Hi, I'm Martin. Live way up above Aberdeen, 10 yards from the North Sea, so it's always windy. Diagnosed with PCA in 2016, and I do far too much co-research. Thanks.
Thank you, Martin. Debs?
Hi, I'm Deb Smith. I live with dementia. I live in South Warwickshire.
Thank you, Debs. Lizzie?
Hi, I'm Lizzie. I'm Programme Manager for House Memories at National Museums Liverpool.
Thank you, Lizzie. Chandrika?
Hello, I'm Chandrika. I looked after my parents for 18 years. They had no formal dementia diagnosis, but they passed away last year.
Thank you, Chandrika. Gemma?
Hi, I'm Gemma Woodhouse-Starr. I'm the programme lead for dementia in the Humber and North Yorkshire Integrated Care System. I'm also a PhD student studying inclusive researches to dementia for people from underrepresented groups. And up until late last year, my husband and I were carers for his mum who had young onset Alzheimer's.
Thanks, Gemma. Stephanie?
Hi everyone, this is Stephanie. I'm one of the researchers in the Empower Dementia Network. I'm based in London. I work at King's College London.
Thank you. Ayakami?
Yeah, good morning everyone. My name is Ayakami Azurudi. I'm one of the public partners for the Empower Dementia Network. And then I'm also an honorary research fellow at the University of Surrey. I conducted co-production events for dementia, and I look forward to sharing it and also hearing from others today.
Ayakami, I really hate to tell you, but you sound like a cartoon character. Was that me as well? Let's try again. Am I okay now? Something very strange is happening. I can, but we all now sound like cartoon characters. Let's try Liber.
Oh.
Hi everyone. I'm Liba. I'm the other researcher on Empowered Dementia Network Plus. Am I also sounding like okay?
I'm so sorry. I'm going to try again. Am I okay now? I'm so sorry. This is a very good example of co-production in practice, I think, isn't it? Manju, I think I saw Manju had arrived.
Yes, I have, Rachel. Hi, everyone. My name is Manju Shahul Ameed. I'm the founder of a registered mental health charity called the Manju Shahul Ameed Foundation for Mental Health in Croydon. We run 3 dementia cafes in the London Borough of Croydon, and we are in conversation with a faith group to start the 4th one. And I am also part of Empower Dementia Network.
Thank you so much, Manju. Faye?
Morning, everyone. I'm Faye. I'm the Public and Community Engagement Support on the Empower Dementia Network. And I'm based quite far north, just outside of Glasgow, so not quite as north as Martin.
Thank you. Have I covered everybody? shout if I haven't. And I realise I haven't introduced myself. I'm Rachel Liverland. I'm part of a national community interest company called Innovations in Dementia. We're really pleased to be a community partner on the Empower Dementia Network Plus. Okay, so
hi Rachel, sorry to stop you. You didn't ask us.
No, or me.
So sorry, are you part of the presenting team?
No, we're not presenting.
No, so we're just doing the presenters. We were just
I see.
introducing ourselves to you. That's okay.
Okay.
But if you want to introduce yourself in the chat box, you're very welcome to.
Thank you.
That's okay. So Ayakami, I think it's something to do with your microphone, which may be a problem for speaking in the. I mean, it's very cute. It's really cute, but I'm not sure we can understand you, and it's making Chandrika laugh a lot. So we may need to turn your microphone off, and maybe you can answer the questions in the chat box, perhaps. Okay, so we're gonna hear from our panel, and then there'll be time for you to ask some questions. So you might have questions throughout that you're very welcome to put in the chat box, and Faye will collect them up. But at the end of today's session, we'll have a good 25 minutes or so, 20-25 minutes for you to ask some questions and for the team to respond to them. Okay, so you probably all know what Empower is because you're interested in applying for the funding. But Empower wants to make things fair and equal for people with dementia. It's a Dementia Network Plus, so it's about engaging a wide range of organisations and people to try to achieve this fairness and equality for people with dementia. It includes people with dementia, family carers, dementia researchers, health and social care professionals and charities across the UK. And the aims of Empower are to work together, that networking element, to find creative ways to make a positive difference in dementia care, particularly to hear the voices of people from marginalised, vulnerable and underserved groups about what matters to them, but also to find new ways to do research that means more people with dementia can take part. So that's the co-production angle, and co-production that is real and not tokenistic. Do you move on, please, Ellie? Thank you. So Empower has co-created across the network a definition of what co-production means to empower. And it was created in October with that range of partners at a community, at an in-person event. So this is the definition of co-production that Empower is working with, and it's important for you to kind of to know. And it is moving away from the tokenistic approach to co-production, centering on equity, sharing power, co-production being at the heart of everything. So co-production, according to Empower, is a collaborative approach that prioritises equity, shared power and shared responsibility among all participants in a safe space. It ensures the ongoing involvement of diverse and inclusive groups, especially those directly affected from the outset. So some really key words in there, I think. Next slide, please. And it's critical, really, that co-production is central to the applications to the Empower funding stream. So you'll hear a lot of ideas about ways that you might approach this in your application and in the delivery of any successful projects, but you're really looking to create a practical and meaningful way to involve a diverse range of people with lived experience. We suggest you might want to think about in-person meetups rather than just online activities where that might be possible. Think about budgets for posting printouts to lived experts, not just relying on people opening up email attachments and reading things on the computer or printing them out themselves. I think time is significant when we're practicing really high quality co-production. Not just the time to do the work, the time on your project, the time on the research, but time to get to know each other, time to review, reflect, debrief. All of those things take time, and all of that takes money and funding potentially. You may want to think about terms of reference. How does this group operate? What are the parameters of this group? What are our ways of working? But not just a researcher writing those terms of reference, but co-creating them with your group of lived experts. Already talked about the regular check-ins, the money that might take, the activities that might be around that. And just thinking at every point really of this co-production journey about all the dementia adjustments that need to be taken to enable participation. Some of those might be really personal to people, and some might be quite global, length of meetings, the ways of writing accessible minutes, the reminders that you might send to people beforehand. So we just want to see in the funding applications that you've really thought about this. You thought about this in practice, not just in principle. Next slide, Ellie, thank you. So innovations in dementia, we did a really big programme of work called Dementia Inquirers, where we developed, where people with dementia led their own research projects. So it's almost a step beyond co-production into co-research, but co-research and co-production, and I think the movement of co-production in Empower is really edging towards that shared research space. So if you go to our reference there at the bottom, you'll see a whole host of recommendations and ideas of practical things that you could do. But just wanted to make the point really that it's not necessarily a step-by-step process. There's not a textbook about how to do this. There's perhaps some principles of how to do this that you might need to hold in your head the whole time through a project. So the principles start with the lens, the importance of lived experience, that people with dementia are at the heart of this. That you're reflecting that, you're reflecting their involvement and the importance of their involvement. That might be co-writing articles, or what can you do to create this feeling of equality within your team so that people with dementia and carers don't feel on a second rung to your whole research experience. Recognise the strengths and experiences of everybody. You've got strengths as researchers. People with lived experience have strengths that you don't have access to because you're not living with or supporting people with dementia. But also people with dementia in the Dementia Inquirers programme were really interested to find out about research processes, to learn, to be acknowledged for their learning, and to link up their own skills and interests, which are often far beyond their lived experience of dementia and go into other areas of their life. It's all built on a relationship of trust and respect, though, and I guess it's, hopefully the principles of how we all work. But sometimes I think in this world of co-production, as researchers, as practitioners, it's about letting go sometimes of all the learned professional behaviour, and kind of creating a new world of co-production professional behaviour together. So do the things you say you'll do, make a safe space, keep it safe, feedback, let people know what's happened because of the work that you've done, and notice people who are quieter. I think that's often it can be quite hard to involve people who are quieter, but they're an essential part of this process. Dementia adjustments have been mentioned, information, accessible information, reminders, running meetings. There's loads of ideas on the Deep website about how to run meetings with people with dementia, how to write accessible information, translate your research systems, make it understandable. Lots of things get kind of caught up in professional or research language, and there's a lot that can be done to share this space. And has already been said, personalised adjustments. Some people will need to be supported to be involved differently. And at the heart of it all is time. As much time as you can give to this process is going to make it the best experience. What kind of things need to happen behind the scenes? What scaffolding can you give to make this a good experience? It's often quite invisible, the scaffolding that we need to put in place. some suggestions are to carry the load around admin, do all the admin, you know, take away the stresses and strains of having to remember links to meetings or how to find a venue or what to discuss at the next meeting. Take away that load and make it as available as possible. Keep negotiating, keep talking. People with lived experience have got their knowledge, their understanding, their desire to have things to have things shifted so it makes it the best possible way for them to be involved. And you're going to have to keep talking and negotiating that. But if you have these shared values at the heart of your work, you can keep going back to those. If you've co-created, you know, what connects us as people from different walks of life, what connects us in this co-productive space, and if you can establish a set of shared values, you can keep returning to them, and checking in with your project that it still feels good, safe and secure, and effective. I think under the idea of shared values comes the principle of paying people for their time. There are lots of you know, the NIHR has the involvement rate, suggested involvement rate for paying people with dementia. Some projects go over and above those suggested rates, but the principle of thanking people and paying them for their involvement is really important. And research systems, research structures can be really rigid and feel like they don't really allow co-production or enhance co-production. But I hope that the principles that you've read about so far in this Empower funding stream give you that encouragement that you could kind of do things a bit differently, work a bit more innovatively, kind of borrow some of the ideas perhaps from dementia inquirers to help you to shift some of those barriers or to move away from those barriers. We know that a lot of researchers have drawn on these gold standards and have drawn on some gold standards for ethical research from the perspective of people with dementia to move away from some of the existing kind of academic structures that can sometimes feel like it makes co-production tricky. There's some principles there, and then I'm going to hand over to Ellie.
Thanks, Rachel. So kind of building on all that brilliant information Rachel just shared. So one other way of thinking about co-production is thinking about the stages of co-production. And this is something which Martin in the group just now, and also Liber, and also Ronald, who's not here today, we've been working together to write a paper about this. So this is a very sort of co-created, I guess, way of thinking about it, really. But I think that what we wanted to really get across was co-production, again, moving away from the tokenistic way that co-production might sometimes be included in projects. How can we embed co-production throughout the whole project? So thinking from the point where you meet each other to the point where you're kind of reflecting back on a project and considering what your involvement was like and just the feeling you've had from being part of that. So I think kind of there's a really great model called the Access Chain, which Sensory Trust, a charity based in Cornwall, piloted a long time ago, and it's been really interesting in terms of thinking about visitor experience to place. And so we've kind of borrowed that way of thinking. So in their model, they talk about the moment that you start thinking about going somewhere is the moment that your journey to that place sort of begins. And then you have that journey of reaching a destination through public transport or through your own vehicle, etc. You have your experience of being in that place, and then you go home and then you reflect on your experience and you might tell your friends and family about it. So I guess thinking about it in that kind of broader term rather than just the delivery or kind of one section of that process. And if one part of that journey has had a negative turn or something's happened, like, you know, maybe the bus didn't pick you up or something's happened, people can be left with that feeling. As we all know, we can go home and think, oh, it was a lovely day, but then the bus didn't pick me up and I ended up being out in the rain for 2 hours waiting for the next bus or whatever. So it's kind of thinking about each step of that process. And that's not to say things won't go wrong. Sometimes things do go wrong, but I think a big thing with co-production is just having open conversations and And yeah, we'll come to this in a moment, but thinking about how we protect those moments and make sure we're repairing moments if that needs to happen as well. I think a real bonus of co-production is people bringing their very different ideas to the table and feeling they can do that. So it's really fostering that space and feeling we've got a toolkit alongside us to be able to manage that well and to build those relationships with each other in the group. So yeah, so just coming to the slide. So the first step, I guess, is meeting one another, and something which we've reflected on a lot as a group is the importance of building positive relationships and meaningful relationships. So, for example, if you're a researcher wanting to maybe find people to involve in your research, thinking about how you can do that meaningfully. So obviously, if you're interested in a particular group and you kind of attend that group and you get to know the actual group, and maybe you go a few times before you then sort of come to the table with your proposal, for example. And more groups are actually sort of stating that. They're stating you can come and meet our group, but then you have to come a few times before you can start asking questions or asking for people to be involved in your research, because it kind of again builds those relationships, and it means that people get a real sense of you as a researcher and what your ask then is, and they've built that trust with you, and it just sets it off on a better note. And then kind of thinking about conceiving the idea of the project. So sometimes, especially with certain funding pots and things, the idea of what you want the outcome to be can be sort of laid out from the very beginning. And it can be a case of getting the funding in and then getting the funding and then realizing, okay, now we can find some lived experts, when actually what's a really nice approach is, if it's possible, is to involve lived experts from the very beginning and say, look, there's these themes coming around, there's these themes in this funding pot, or there's things here that we could talk about. What are your thoughts on this area? And I think that's what's really I guess new and innovative about Empower, is that it's saying, come to us with your ideas and then we'll match you, or we can then start from the very beginning working together and build something as a team. And then thinking about the planning stages together. So again, just making sure that's very much co-produced and that people are part of the planning. They can be clear about their access barriers, and you can make sure that those things are taken into consideration. You can create a terms of reference together, as Rachel's mentioned. So the pledge group, which is made up of lived experts on the Empower network, and they have a terms of reference, for example. So it just says this is our ways of working, and it's just that thing of revisiting that and making sure that's still working for everybody, and just continuing to review it as well, and also continuing to review people's involvement, because that might change, especially if you're working with people living with dementia, and their circumstances might change, or they might also build confidence and think, actually, I'd like to have more input than I initially sort of said I would like to. So it's just continuing to have those review moments. And then with delivery, so we've spoken at length with the group about the kind of online, in-person, hybrid, and those being sort of the three ways that you might go about creating delivery spaces together. And as part of the paper we're writing, we'll have quite in-depth sort of thoughts on these areas, and just the importance of, for example, if you are doing a hybrid event, is there a way that you can visit people that can't be there in person? Like, could you put that money into your budget line, that you'd like to put some money into visit that person who lives rurally, for example, and make sure that you spend time together and get to know that person, and that they don't feel kind of an outsider to the project just because they can't be physically there in person. I think something the group have also mentioned is maybe the London-centricness that can happen a little bit. So just thinking about geography and how can I make this feel really equitable in terms of geography, and not make people feel that they just can't be there because they don't live close enough, for example. And then in terms of end product and destination, so again, as we've said throughout the whole of this presentation so far, but just being open to what that might look like, having that openness to and flexibility, not just kind of trying to get to your end point throughout the whole project, but just thinking, oh, this is different to what we expected, and being open to that being a very new destination and a destination you can't envisage at the beginning. And kind of connected to dissemination as well. How might you celebrate what you've done? Are there kind of skills within the group that you could use to disseminate the information that you've created? Especially when we're thinking about creating more research, how can we make that accessible to people in the community? Are we going to do film, an exhibition? Or it might be that it's a book of stories of people that want to share kind of, experts of their life that are built on that topic that you're looking at. So, and what skills skills do the group have to support you with doing that? And I think being open to that can be really transformative for everybody in the group. And then also evaluation. So I think embedding this from the very beginning, as we know, that's always really good with evaluation. And things like, again, I'll reference Sensory Trust here, but they have they're basically, when I was working at Sensory Trust, we found that questionnaires were just really limiting the richness of the information that we could get from our members who are coming to our walking groups. And we worked with Artswell, a local charity, to design a different type of questionnaire that was about kind of imagining yourself as a plant and and inviting the member after each session to reflect on how they felt. Do they feel like a really, thriving sunflower that's kind of coming out of the pot, or do they feel like a little seed that's starting to kind of emerge, and just how much can come from creative evaluation techniques, and all that sort of thing. So just being open about how you're gathering information. And as Martin has said to us recently, qualitative has such value, and actually sometimes there can be a real focus on quantitative data, but actually qualitative can lean into becoming more quantitative data. The more qualitative data we have, the more we can start saying, we've noticed that this word is used so many times in people's stories, or these things are used, and we can start kind of translating that into quantitative data in a way that then kind of, I guess, ticks all the boxes. But I think what's really unique about the Empower opportunity is that the people providing the funding and the Empower team are really wanting to see these things be stretched and used differently. And again, some of our members have also reflected on they sometimes feel a bit left behind when it comes to dissemination evaluation. So just making sure people are involved in those moments. If you're sharing your findings at a conference, make sure that your whole team can be there. People feel left out if they're just sort of hearing about it from email, via email, and it's a bit of a sort of kind of last minute thought. So I just let them know that it went really well, and actually for that person it could be really a huge thing to be able to go to an event like that or find a way to contribute. And as I said at the beginning, thinking again about the access chain and reflecting back on the project. And we all know that, if we've had a bad feeling on a project or we haven't been involved, then we're not going to feel great about it if we're reflecting back on it. So just feeling that, you've been valued and that there's been a really positive relationship that's been fostered throughout, just makes such a huge difference for everybody in the project. And then just to sort of summarise some top tips before we come to our expert panel. So really, really important to take the time to get to know the people you're working with. So the importance of that human approach, being authentic, and empathy. That word's come up time and time again with working with lived experts. So just being really empathetic, having that relationship focus in your work. So moving away from a tick box exercise, people feeling like they're ticking a box to sort of get funding because they're working with people with lived experience. So just kind of really building that relationship. And I think that benefits all of us by feeling that we're kind of, building a really positive working environment for everybody. And as Rachel has mentioned as well, just to sort of summarise some key ways that we might think about supporting people. So it could be that one of the things is printing and posting text to people in the post. So rather than just expecting people to read, things on Google Docs or kind of online or find attachments on emails, just make it really easy and take that mental load away, as Rachel's mentioned. One of the recommendations is to use Helvetica size fit 18 font and just be really clear with text. If you've got these massive email signatures, just maybe delete them and just have the email very simply written, minimal text, and just really clear, bold the things that are important. So things like that. And as Rachel said, there's some amazing resources on the Deep website to support with that as well. There is a preference of Zoom over Teams, and sometimes there are limitations with Zoom, as for example, with today, it's this webinar is needs to happen on Teams because of this sort of event. So, but Zoom, people find that they can see each other, they're not moving around so much. So just being mindful of those sorts of things. I've mentioned check-ins, and also adjusting people's involvement if necessary throughout the project, being open to the project journey and the output, creating a practical budget to allow for diverse PPI engagement, and using the NIHR standard of payment, which is £25 per hour or more. So that's just something to bear in mind. Don't make assumptions. So if I can see what your hand up, is that a time check?
It is, yeah. just got a
thank you. I'll be
minute or so
that's
left.
yeah, no problem. That's fine. I'm nearly finished. Thank you. So don't make assumptions. Keep asking questions and keep being connected. So don't assume anything about your people you're working with, and keep asking questions the whole time. Be willing to make changes to the ways you're working together. Encourage honesty and openness about how things are going. Speak to other project team members to sort of share learning and best practice. And you'll also find you'll generate your own list of top tips from what you learn about the people you're working with, because everybody is different. So yeah, just some top tips for you there. And now we're going to come to our group panel. So I'll hand back to Rachel and I'll stop sharing so you can see each other.
Thanks, Ellie. So I'm trying to spot on my screen Martin, Deb, and Chandrika. I've got Chandrika and Deb. So I think Martin, if you turn your, I'll see you when you speak. So just so you know, panel, I'm going to have a chat with the lived experts, then a chat with the community partners, and then a chat with the researchers, and then we've got a few minutes just to kind of tie it all up together. So Martin, Debs and Chandrika, you can just speak or pop your hand up, whatever you want to do. Why is co-production important to you?
I would break it down into two sections very quickly. One is what you might like to call the selfless ones, like you want to help folk and that. And me in particular, I want to not only think outside the box, I want to smash the box so that people following us don't feel that they are kind of caught in tokenistic PPI. The selfish reason is that when I was diagnosed in 2016, I was told that in 3 years I'd be in care. And I see a neurologist every 6 months. I'm actually seeing him on Friday. And he says that all the harder academic work I do is keeping me out of care. So that's a selfish reason.
Thanks, Martin. I'll come back. Debs.
For me, it's important because it brings the voice of people with lived experience, whether that's somebody living with dementia or their carers, together with the voice of the academic and the researchers, and makes the research stronger. So people are bringing their different experience and views, and everyone's got different experience and views. And if they haven't got that experience, it's difficult for them to bring it. So bringing it all together makes everything stronger for better research and hopefully better future care and treatments.
Yeah, thanks, Debs. Chandrika, do you have anything to add to that? Why is it important to you?
Really just to create change, and I know everyone says that, and then I always get people saying that academia will take a long time to create that change. So sometimes that can be a bit demoralizing. Essentially, my mum and dad had to fight very hard in all of their kind of healthcare and social care interactions. I had to advocate hard. That's exhausting, and I think we need to try and create those changes. And I think it's co-production allows us to identify how systems work and how we can make those changes work and happen. Possibly.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I mean, I think that's quite a kind of like, it's a big thing, isn't it? Like the more we do, the more we change the system. So I'm going to ask you now, what helped? You know, you're all involved in all kinds of different things. You're all involved in Empower. What helped co-production? What makes it a good experience? Any takers? Deb, well done. Go for it.
Yeah, I think it's taking time to build up relationships. So taking time at the beginning of when you're working together to set up your ways of working and building up those relationships encourages the openness and makes the experience better, I suppose, and helps the group work together well, and everyone, I suppose, being given an equal chance to contribute, so not letting any one person dominate.
Yeah. Thanks, Debs. Martin.
Yeah, I think I would take it a bit further and say, yeah, there's got to be empathy between the researcher and the people with dementia. And I find that best if you kind of, if you like, find a researcher that's interested in your field and stick with them. If you go with them long term, becomes a deeper relationship. And the researcher also has to realize and not patronize us and realize that we've had a lived experience before our dementia that is as important as our dementia experience. I'll give you an example. I used to be a benefits fraud officer, so I used to interview claimants under caution, with you see them on telly with tape recorders. So I had to look for the body language to see if they were telling porkies. And without realizing, I was teaching myself conversation analysis, and obviously that comes in handy.
Yes. Thank you, Martin. A great example. Chandrika, what helps you?
I think for me, I can suss out whether a researcher is passionate about a subject and whether they're doing it because it's a funding opportunity or a research project that will continue their career. And I know that sounds a bit harsh, but a lot of us we're vulnerable. We're putting across our lived experiences, and that's, people say that quite a lot, but essentially they're very vulnerable parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
So we need to be able to work with people who really care about that subject.
Yeah. I think that's a really important point, Chandrika. There's a lot of, Debs and Martin have both mentioned relationships, but there's trust at the heart of that, isn't there? And this, and this kind of, you're giving so much of yourselves to this experience. So thank you for saying that, Deb.
Yeah, I think it's worth thinking about the way that you meet, whether it's online or in person. There's lots of advantages of meeting online, but maybe consider, if it's going to be possible, at least one meeting in person, because I think meeting in person and those conversations that maybe aren't in the main meeting are often the things that strengthen and build the relationships.
Yeah, thank you. Martin?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I'm the outlier because obviously I live miles away from anyone else. But if you actually put in your funding application, one of the PPI co-ops or whatever lives in Aberdeen and has a disability, so he can't travel, the funder will pay for it, will allow people to come if you explicitly ask for it. You have they now know that's what they expect that, and if you don't ask, you don't get, and if you do ask, you usually do get. Thanks.
Thank you, Martin. Okay, I'm going to move on to the community partners, but we'll all come back together as a bigger group. But I think you've got some real principles in what you've all just said and some real practicals as well. So now it's I'm very concerned about Aya Kanmi. Are you still here in your...
Yes, I'm here.
You don't sound like a cartoon character anymore.
Yeah, apologies.
Brilliant. So we've got Lizzie, Manju, and Aya Kanmi. So the same questions to you. We've got about 5 minutes. Why is co-production important to you as a community partner? Why is co-production important to you? Manju, yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Thank you. So co-production is important to our charity because it recognizes that people with lived experience are experts in their own right. So we, as I said earlier on in my introduction, we run 3 dementia cafes, and some of the colleagues attended those sessions. It's always packed sessions, and I have seen how powerful it is when services are shaped by those who use them, and it creates a sense of ownership, dignity, and shared responsibility, leading to more relevant and compassionate support. So, and we can help reach those individuals who may otherwise be excluded or overlooked. So in our dementia cafes, so co-production has led to intergenerational models where young people and older adults feel empowered. So when we started the Dementia Cafe, it was purely for people who got dementia or their carers, but that intergenerational aspect came in due to co-production, and ultimately co-production helps create more effective and equitable service rooted in real life experiences by the people who attend the sessions.
Thank you, Manju. Lizzie, were you looking? I'm just spotting you. I don't know if you're about to speak.
Yeah, I can go next.
Yeah, go on.
Co-production's important to me in our line of work for House Memories because it's where the magic happens. It makes me want to get out of bed in the morning, to be honest. It makes my job not just a job, but something that I really, really enjoy and I really love kind of just getting involved with. House Memories, we design programs that explore people's identities, cultures, religions, hobbies. And for a second, you kind of see people's sense of relief that they've come into a situation and they've come into a place where we're not asking them about their lived condition. We're not speaking about, what's next in treatment plans, but we're actually having that conversation of who are you and what can you contribute to your wider society with, one, what you are going through, but also two, who you are as a person. And I think for people living with dementia, from what I've experienced in terms of feedback, people get that diagnosis and they think, that's my job gone, that's, my hobbies, I've lost friends, I've lost, I can't do what I used to do anymore. And by getting them involved in co-production and then wanting to be involved, it's them taking that little bit of ownership of who they are and what they enjoy still. And you can see that when they walk through the door, and it makes your job just really rewarding to be around. And I love listening to people's stories anyway, personally as well as professionally. So if anybody wants to come and sit with me with a cup of coffee and chat about their life experiences, I'm more than happy to listen. And I think that's what's really important, because the final result, the final product, whether that's an evaluation piece, whether that's a finished product, for me, you get to see that sense of kind of happiness and ownership in the final product. It's not something that me as a professional sat in an office and created with my lack of experience, but actually it's full of experience and lived experiences, and it's full of joy and it's full of passion, and you can see that when people start accessing what you've created with them people.
Oh, I love that, Lizzie. Magic and joy. That's at the heart of it, isn't it? How wonderful. Thank you. Ikammi, have you got anything to add about why it's important to you?
Yes, thank you very much, Rachel. So co-production is important to me because it creates a platform for collaboration between research partners and community partners to drive positive social change through research and community projects. And as a representative and community partner who works more among African and Caribbean ethnic communities, 5 keywords stand out to me: collaboration, contribution, mutual goal, representation, and change. And I think with those 5 keywords, I've seen how it's very important through co-production to be able to understand what people, how to engage people, not just prescribing for them, but what interests them and how to achieve that. So it comes through co-production and, of course, effective communication.
Brilliant, thank you. So just a final question to the three of you. What helps it? What makes it tick? Some practical things, some principles.
Can I go, Rachel?
You go, Manju. Yeah.
So for us, what helps co-production is creating a safe, inclusive space where everyone feels respected and heard. Clear communication, trust, and a shared understanding of goals are essential. Flexibility with time and process allows people with lived experience to contribute meaningfully. Because when we started our Dementia Cafe, Age UK Croydon approached us to start the cafe in one of the affluent areas in the borough, and the issue was And they told us in terms of the timing, it is better to have between 1:30 and 3:30 to have these cafes, because that will, especially in summer and winter, it allows people to come out and be part of that surveys. And supporting resources like training, transport, or digital access also help remove barriers to participation. Another example is when we started our cafe, we had a local college provided the transport, and that service was for young people who attending the college. But then later on, we found out that due to accessible transport issues, we have to stop that service, and that had an impact on certain people coming to our cafes. And some of them never came back, and some of them were encouraged by other attendees to join them by bus or sharing, cars by the carers, but some of them stopped coming because of the accessibility issue. So that is something we have to bearing in mind. And I find that building strong relationships and valuing lived experience equally to professional knowledge is key to successful co-production.
Thank you, Manju. Thank you. Lizzie, what helps?
It's really simple, but a cup of tea and an honest conversation, I think, goes a really long way. Just getting people in a room with no expectations. Get a brew, put the kettle on, get some biscuits, and just talk about kind of, meeting people's expectations. What do people want to get out of this project, and what can you as the organisation be able to provide, and be able to make that really clear from the get-go, because you're starting from a foundation then of trust and understanding, and they know they can come to you and ask questions. They know they can say, just put the kettle on, I want to have, a conversation. And I think starting off and having that solid foundation of loyalty and trust and clear guidance and kind of meeting people's expectations goes a long way. That really helps me.
Perfectly practical. Thank you, Lizzie. And me, what helps?
Yeah, so three things. First, making sure that everyone enjoys the co-production event. So I've always derived my fulfillment in seeing the smiles on people's faces every time we have co-production event. So, and I think it's very important to make sure one creates that platform, that friendly atmosphere where people enjoy the activity that's been done. Another thing is actually leveraging on each other's strength in terms of not prescribing, but coming humble in order to learn, from each other, both as a facilitator and the people you are facilitating with. And then I also think another thing that I've also seen is actually embracing each other's culture, especially when dealing with African and ethnic ethnic communities. It's about embracing their culture, about learning, opening one's mind to learn and not prescribing for them. Thank you.
Yeah, opening one's mind to learning. And I think that's at the heart of it all, isn't it? So thank you, community partners. Time ticks. So I'm going to now go to researchers who are going to give their perspective on co-production. So I've got Gemma, Stephanie and Liber. You can take a turn each, or you can just chip in. Why is co-production important to you? Gemma.
Yeah, Adam, I'm going first. I think Lizzie said it perfectly. It's where the magic happens. So we've just finished co-producing our dementia strategy for the next 5 years, and it's been fully co-produced all the way through. And the conversations that we've had over the last 2 years as part of that have just been incredible. The honesty from people, that I think people with lived experience bring something so different and so unique that even though my husband and I were carers for his mum for the last 8 years, our experiences and her experiences of dementia were our experiences. So actually hearing other people's experiences and how it impacts them has been incredible. And I remember one guy, Philip, who presented at a conference and shared his experiences and his approach to understanding his diagnosis. I think there wasn't a dry eye in the room when he shared that he wanted to maintain his independence for as long as possible. So instead of worrying about the time coming when he's no longer able to drive, he started taking himself on bus routes every day and learning the local buses and timetables and is never used public transport before, and the other people in the room living with dementia were like, that's such a good idea. And even though it's just them kind of seemingly small day-to-day things, sharing that with other people, it opens up such a new conversation and brings out so many wonderful ideas.
Thank you, Gemma. Stephanie.
Thank you. I think a lot has been said that resonates, so I'll try to keep it short. I think a production is important because it makes our work relevant, grounded, informed, and ethical. It's the right thing to do.
Oh, that's perfectly succinct, Stephanie. Thank you. Liba.
Yeah, same as Stephanie, so many things have been said, but from the co-creation workshops that we've done, a lot of people with dementia have said that they kind of feel that they're spoken for or about, and co-production kind of flips that, so you can work in real partnership if you co-produce projects.
And do you have any additional ideas about what helps co-production, perhaps from the perspective of being a researcher? Anybody? Is your hand still up, Liba? Are you going to go for it? What helps?
I think I'm just going to say what we said in the first meeting that we had for the co-production training, and it was that you just have to be, sometimes you have to be comfortable with the fact that there are going to be some uncomfortable conversations that you have. And it just matters that, you know, you come to a mutual understanding at the end, and that's fine.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. It can be uncomfortable because we're you know, as Chandrika said, you know, there's a vulnerability that comes, and then you know, there's all kinds of barriers as well that we've talked about. So, but being prepared to be emotional, to give of oneself, and that's the researchers and the community partners as well as people with lived experience, and there can be a discomfort that comes with that. I'm kind of thinking Lizzie's cup of tea comes in here and cake. Any other what helps from the researchers?
I think everyone's already touched on it anyway in terms of that relationship, but that kind of being a two-way process, so it's not researchers and organisations just going out and holding a workshop or a co-production group, but actually sharing how that's influencing, how that's changing things. So, for example, one of our local groups run by Innovations in Dementia, they talked about how actually sat around a cold church hall talking about their experiences had actually shaped a strategy for 1.7 million people. And for them, knowing where that is going was so important. It's not just that people are trying to tick a box and say, oh yeah, we've listened to some people, but actually how has that created that meaningful change? And then practical things as well. So thinking about venues, for example, something we'd not considered in one of the leisure centres that we'd used. One of the local groups did a walkthrough and said actually the carpet on the entrance and the two lots of sliding doors would have just put people off that have really, really struggled with that. So we worked with them and with the venue to use different entries and exits, different routes, different parking areas. So just I guess taking all of the practical learning at every point and thinking about that for next things that you're planning. And again, where people are living, lots of people are living in rural areas where it's not easy to just jump on a bus or get a taxi or join somewhere. So actually going out and seeing people in their homes, in their own communities can make a big difference.
Thank you, Gemma. I'm going to just loop back, just as we conclude the section, to Debs and Martin and Chandrika. You started off this session, you've heard other perspectives. Do you have anything else that you would like to add? No, Deb is happy. Anybody? Martin? Chandrika?
Yeah, I would like to emphasize what I've put in the notes, that there is guidance out there that shows that rural communities are vastly under-researched and we probably have the highest prevalence of dementia. So it's very skewed towards urbanisation.
Yeah.
And basically, A, it's unfair. And we rely on, a taxi for me to Aberdeen costs 80 quid, for God's sake, I can't. So that's out of the question. So we rely on online.
Yeah.
So you do have to think about that, but we are vastly underrepresented in the research, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
But we are forgotten about because we're not quite sexy.
Well, thank you so much, Martin. I think it's really important. You know, the kind of the involvement, co-production is should be as wide as possible. And I think we said that in one of the opening slides. Diversity includes all kinds of different angles to think about. So thank you everybody for engaging. Oh, Chandrika.
Just going to say, I think people put people into groups, and I think within those groups are marginalised people. So we talk about marginalised groups, but within those are very small ones. They don't speak out much. They don't often shout about their experiences, and we need to find those. So that can be particular faiths, or people with no faith, or it can be specific types of groups, and we need to include all of them, not just the big groups that you think you can identify.
Important point. Thank you, Chandrika. So I'm going to hand over now to Ellie, who's going to continue with our panel discussion.
Thanks, Rachel, and thank you, everyone. There's so much richness there, and yeah, thank you. So question number 2, I'm going to pop in the chat. So this one is for all of our everyone who's kind of been involved in the discussion so far, and to answer together, really. So we've got about 15 minutes. The question is, has there been a scenario that has happened on a project you have been involved in that was challenging? Was there something someone did to improve it? So if anyone has any points to that, please feel free to pop your hand up. Martin.
Sometimes I feel that I've signed up to a different project, to be honest, for the one that's coming out. And that upsets me. And my dementia is such, it's a rare dementia. So my emotions go totally balmy, I'm afraid. 1 minute I'm up and the next minute I'm down a rabbit hole. So it really upsets me. And I get quite, I suppose angry probably is the right word. And I lash out. I don't lash out physically at all, but I do verbally. But the way around that is to have researchers that understand that will happen. I.e., you've got to understand the symptoms of dementia, because they're not all memory and cognitive loss, because the brain controls everything, so it can affect anything. And you need to be able to talk to the researcher, and you might not get your problem solved. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that you'll both understand each other better, and I think that's so important. And that does mainly come through a long-term relationship, if you want to call it that, long-term working relationship, and really feeling part of the team and not just an add-on. Thanks.
Thanks, Martin. I think that's so important. And again, I think what you said there about just that relationship and actually the importance of feeling, to have that moment of feeling part of a relationship and also part of the team, and that being so healing. And I think that also raises a really good point about training around dementia, and like you say, researchers really understanding different types of dementia, or spending that time to understand, it's that quote, isn't it? You've met one person with dementia, you've met one person with dementia. So really understanding how dementia might present for the individual that they're working with as well, and just learning about that person. So yeah, thank you so much, Martin. That was really valuable. Any other points to that question? So has there been a scenario that has happened on a project that's been challenging, and was there something someone did to improve it? Izzy.
Hello. Yeah, so At House of Memories, I've started doing quite a lot of work with communities that I think we haven't really touched upon within dementia support yet, in terms of LGBTQ individuals, veterans, people who have lived experiences or identities or memories that people kind of don't want to tap into because they're scared of the reaction, or they don't really know how to achieve co-production in that, and so it's kind of just left. And when I was doing the LGBTQ work, I had individuals living with dementia who were still thinking that, Section 28 was still in place. They couldn't speak about their emotions. Margaret Thatcher was still here. And me as the professional, I didn't really know how to respond to that. I didn't really know how to deal with that as, the expert who was meant to be coming in and, saving the day with these people. But what helped me was just listening, was just being guided by them. And I think that's the power of really truly listening, and not just listening, but using what they're saying to actually make the project happen. Like Martin said, making sure that the outcome is what you initially signed up for in the first place, because otherwise there's just no point.
Thank you, Lizzie. That's a really great example. Thank you. Stephanie.
Thank you. I wanted to talk as an early career researcher, that I think there are a lot of scenarios, like things will go wrong. I will say almost certainly there will be something either small or big. Communication will kind of break, and you have boundaries and expectations that are blurred. I think it's part of a project evolving and people working together. I think the fact that research is so specific, yes, there are so many hierarchies and so many rules and expectations, and the people with lived experience are coming from also, a health system that can be quite chaotic and a lot of experiences. Those two things can clash sometimes. I think, again, it's natural. And for me, as an early career researcher, what helps is when the leaders get involved and actually listen to people with lived experience and kind of show you how you can be creative and can solve things in innovative ways. Because I think as an early career researcher, you don't always have the power to make a choice. You can listen. It's like, yeah, this is not the right thing to do or something, but it's not clear what you can do. Or maybe you say you'll do something and then you're actually not allowed, or something weird like that. And when I have found helpful is when, and a leader is not always your manager. A leader is sometimes a community partner or someone else in the team that can speak up and say, this is what we should do or something, and I think part of that is also having the resources and the time when our leaders acknowledge this will take time, and this is your allocated time to build the trust or to go and meet them or to do something differently. I think that really helps, and that teaches you as an early career researcher.
Thank you, Stephanie. That was great. Lots of amazing points there. And I think one point I'll just pick up on is the having people that you feel that you can talk to, and the, like say, the leadership people that you can kind of ask advice or kind of share some thoughts and approach it compassionately and take that time. I think that's a really good idea. Martin.
Chandrika hates this term, so I'm going to try and make it the last time I use it. But researchers don't always realize that people with dementia have a limited shelf life, and you don't hear from them for months on end. And that is plain rude, to be honest. You should be communicating with us at least on a monthly basis to tell us what's going on and not hiding anything from us. So you need to be in not constant communication, but certainly monthly, if not week, and part of it fortnightly, which is the best option. But so as I say, don't forget that we have a limited shelf life, so we want to get on with things. We don't want to get put on hold like you are on the phone.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Martin. Thank you. And I think that there's something there, isn't there, about pacing and so again, thinking about time and keeping that pace up so that you're keeping communications going. And like you say, people are connected. And I think something Empower does with the Pledge group is have a newsletter, isn't it? So kind of keeping people informed, finding ways to keep people linked in, and responding if people say, I'm not feeling linked in. It's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean that you've done something wrong. It's just listening to that feedback and then making a change to address it. Yeah, thank you, Martin. And Manju.
Thank you. So I just wanted to talk about the funding opportunity. Obviously, as a community organization, a community partner, really pleased that this funding opportunity is now available through Empower Dementia Network. But I had previously developed a proposal. This was like 6 months ago, to evaluate the impact of the dementia cafes that we are running in Croydon, and we had secured the right partners to support the work. However, at that time, I wasn't aware of the research opportunities that was accessible to support such initiatives. So I don't know how we do it, but then I think through NIHR, I think it seems like there are funding opportunities available which we can tweak. But then how do we get access to those opportunities? So, that's something we have to look at. That I think it's one of the challenges. The other challenge I just wanted to share here that's been told us by the people who got dementia and their carers is the advice and information to people with dementia and their carers on coping with the symptoms and the issues, the day-to-day issues that they struggle with. Because, for example, sleep, fall, losing appetite, those are a number of issues that they talk to us about. And carers as well, some of them really struggle, but they don't know where to get the right information or advice. And one of the things we try to do in a dementia cafe that like I said, we have 3, and one of them is at Croydon University Hospital. So what we did is we invited some clinical experts to talk about those different areas: heart health, mental health, and fall and sleep hygiene, those kind of areas. And so it's really important to have that information available, which can be accessible for those people easily. Yeah.
Thanks, Manju. That's a great point. And maybe there's something there about signposting, isn't there, as well, of kind of knowing what resources are around you that you can signpost people to, and rather than having to answer everything yourself, like where is that kind of advice out there in the community that you can use. Faye.
Sorry, it's a very rude time check again, just to make sure we have time to answer questions from
thank you.
the group.
That's great, thanks. I was just going to say, if there aren't any more kind of points on that, we will move on to kind of questions for everyone in the room. So, has everyone feel they've said what they'd like to say as part of the speaking team? Is everyone happy? Great, thank you. Just want to say a huge thank you for your contributions today, because running training on co-production, it was so important that everyone's voices are part of this, and it has been a very co-produced session, as you probably can feel. And so just huge thank you to everybody that shared their perspectives. Perfect. So I think we'll move on to questions and answers. So if anyone in the room, well, firstly, thank you so much for listening and being part of our training today. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask the group? It can be anything from sort of practical or any thoughts from anything anyone said. Feel free to share or ask. Oh, MP, I can't see your full name, MP, but please feel free to. Oh, there you are.
Hi, yeah, sorry, it's Martha.
Hi, Martha.
I don't know how to change it off of my initials. I did it years ago, and I can't change it back.
Don't worry, it's fine.
I'd just like to say thank you for a really great session. So I'm studying for a PhD or professional doctorate, and have the great privilege of working with Martin, and just the value that gives me is just amazing. The things that Martin and some of the other people with dementia who are working with me, it's just amazing, and I feel really humbled for the things that people say. And I think as a care professional coming into research, I'm really astounded at how limiting research is for people with dementia. And I kind of, my question really is, what can we do to change it? Because yes, it's co-production, but actually there needs to be a lot more that, if it was another health condition, there wouldn't be such limitations on asking people to participate. And I get quite frustrated, particularly around like mental capacity, and being told, oh, well, if they don't have capacity, they can't engage, but people still can engage. So that's my question in a long, convoluted way.
Thank you, Martha. That's a great question. Martin, your hand went up. Is that in response to Martha's question?
Yeah, Martha knows what I'm going to say, but just because we might become non-verbal, we're still, body language is 80% of communication anyway. So you've got things such as talking maps, you can use photos. There's plenty of ways of allowing us our mental capacity. And the Mental Capacity Act actually states that you've got to try different environments, different times of day, all sorts of things. You can't just do it once and say tough. You got to go back and try different methods and, as I say, different times of day. And if you don't do that, you're actually breaking the law, which researchers don't understand, because I used to use it in my work. So there are plenty of ways of getting our capacity. And because I'm so mad about research, my power of attorney has got it, and I want to carry it on afterwards. Things like that. You can have that done within Dylan, things like that. So yeah, we have capacity. We're more capacity than people seem to realise. Thanks.
Thanks, Martin. Yes, it's that education piece, isn't it, of that people with dementia can still, is that whole thing of shifting the narrative and I think something actually Maria, who's in the space in the room today, we spoke about yesterday, was also and Martin, you've also spoken to it, but the kind of fatigue of people that do put themselves forward and kind of wanting to do the research and things, but making that often they're the ones that get selected for a lot of different projects and research projects. And how do we open up so that more people can take part? Which hopefully is what this project will really offer, is people bringing that to their own communities and involving people with dementia in research in ways that maybe for lots of people they haven't had that opportunity before. So but yeah, great point about different ways of communicating, being open-minded about that. I think that's so important. Kiana, thank you for waiting patiently. What was your question?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be part of this webinar, should I say, seminar. We are quite new to dementia and Alzheimer's, so it's been very interesting for us to be here. Thanks to Dr. Ayokumi, who we have been working with, co-designing a project. We are actually a fashion brand, and we specialize in turbans and fascinators and workshops. And we have engaged in a few sort of workshops for dementia and how we use our workshop to support with cognitive stimulation and sort of a reminiscence therapy, which has been very good. So mine was pretty much more of a statement, being that we are from the fashion world, which is more sort of a commercial, but it's been very interesting to see how our workshops and doing our turbans and fascinators can be used for dementia, in terms of creating an activity that everybody can embark on, that have dementias, and also practitioners, and give this, for example, to their care users. So it's for me, it was more so to say that it's been interesting to see the intersections and how we can come on board, and it's great to know that there's also funding, because that's also an element with creatives that we kind of that's been quite difficult for us, in able to get funding to see how we can really evolve these workshops, because it is a very interesting way in which we can connect with individuals going through dementia, caregivers. So it was just a statement, essentially, just to say it's wonderful to know and connect with everybody here, and just to see how much passion and empathy everybody has. And also for Martin to share with his experiences and allow us to engage with the research with a more, in a way that's more creating friendships, and also involving people that's experiencing dementia. How can we make this a good experience for them and not just leave them out, or for them to be the case study, so to speak? So yeah, just thank you for your contributions, and we look forward to engaging with everyone, and it's been wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kiana. And I had the privilege of seeing your film at the Creative Dementia Conference a couple of weeks ago, and your work looks amazing. So I think, and it just goes to show that yeah, people can come to into this work without having much experience of working with people living with dementia, and just be really open to learning and sorts of new ways, new tools that you can bring to the field, which is amazing. So yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Brilliant. And we've got about 10 more minutes. If anyone has any final questions or thoughts from today, please feel free to share. Great. Well, in which case, I'll share the last slide of our presentation, which just is a bit of a summary. I'm going to hand over to Liba for this last one. Should I get it up properly? There we go.
All right, thank you, everyone. I really hope that you found this webinar useful. So the deadline for expressions of interest is 11th of July. That's for the Small Research Project Fund. This webinar would be available online, so if you want to watch it back, and please get in touch with us if you have any questions. Our email is on the screen, but I'll put it in the chat as well. And thank you so much, again.
Brilliant, thank you, Liba. So yeah, I think we'll draw it to a close there unless anyone's got any final questions. But thank you so much for coming, and we hope it's just given you lots of food for thought for your expressions of interest. And thank you again to all of our panelists for being so open and bringing so much richness to the discussions. And thank you so much to Rachel as well for co-chairing with me. And yeah, fantastic. Thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.